All right, hello everybody. This is Laura Victoria Ward in Inner Outer Space Harmony, a Laban Barteniev and many other somatic practices class here on Zoom. And I am just going to mute everybody because otherwise you might be the person that we see on the screen. And I also want to just let you know that we're going to start with a little bit more inner today, and then we'll be getting more outer. Personally, I feel a huge need for some grounding. And so I'm going to play with a grounding practice first, and then hopefully some breathing practices that actually the breathing practice that we'll do is probably going to be continuum based breathing practices. So Emily Conrad is the one who developed continuum, and we will, sorry, I'm just trying to get myself situated. We'll be working with that a little bit, but starting with the grounding practice. Hello, Virginia. Let's just take a minute to come in for a landing. So whatever it means to you to come in for a landing in your own body, maybe closing your eyes is easier, maybe not, depending on how you feel, how comfortable you are in this moment, in this space. Let's bring our awareness into our bones. So feeling in our body, the bony landmarks that are touching whatever they're touching. Maybe it's your feet on the floor, maybe it's your butt, your sit bones on your chair. And maybe from within your own body, you can even sense the structure of your bones and the density and the weightedness of your bones. So just bringing in that invitation to sense that deep, heavy, grounded sense of self. Using the bones as a starting place to feel our connection to the earth, to feel the sort of dense, earthy quality of being human, of being alive in a body. And maybe feeling the bones also allows you to feel things like your teeth, sensing your cranium, the weightedness of your head, your spinal cord, your spine, the bones of your spine, your vertebrae, your pelvis, your rib cage, feeling the weight of your arms and your legs, and feeling the weight of your hands and your feet, and allowing them to touch into whatever they're touching. So coming into this sense of dense bone groundedness. And then from there, we're just going to invite a little of the fluid nature of our body in. So feeling the sense of your blood flow, the fluids in the body, your cerebral spinal fluid, also sort of the fresh water of the body. Feeling your, maybe you can even feel your lymph, or imagine that you can feel your lymph. So one of the detoxifiers of the body. And letting that fluid sense and fluid nature sort of fill in around the bones. So with that fluid nature, feeling a sense of flow, feeling a sense of liquid movement within your body, and allowing that, let's take that into the bones. So feeling the bone marrow inside the bones, and even the bone itself that isn't marrow has some fluidity. Like we are beings made primarily of water, and how we move and how we don't move affects the way that our form takes shape. So tuning into the marrow inside the bones and imagining it really slow, almost like a lava lamp. What's inside of a lava lamp, maybe even slower than that, denser than that, but thinking of the fluidity inside of the bone. And imagining that that fluidity inside of the bone adds a layer of support. So a layer of resilience to the body with that fluid bone. And then from there, we're going to take it to the breath. So we're going to work with a couple of different breaths. And these are from Emily Conrad's Continuum. I learned them first with Mary Abrams at Moving Body Resources, and then with a bunch of other Continuum teachers also. So the first breath that we're going to work with is called theta breath. And it's like a soft S sound, like a soft hiss. or a soft TH, like it's the Greek letter theta, the idea. And your tongue is behind your teeth. And it's sort of a soft hiss. If it feels stressful to you to breathe like that, you can just not do it at all. That's fine. So always we want to keep coming to what feels more resilient and sustainable. If something is, not that we don't want to find our edges, but maybe right now we're just working towards grounding, centering, coming into ourselves and adding that breath element. So I will demonstrate and you can do it with me. You're all muted. And once we get going, we'll do this for maybe a minute. Think that whenever you're not trying to make this breath last forever, let it last as long as feels comfortable, and then inhale through your nose and exhale another theta breath. So, and you can take resting breaths whenever you want, or you can just skip that and just think about it if that is more comfortable for you. Just listening to the sound of it. So going for about a minute with theta breath. Okay, and then bringing it together for just a second. I just want to ask if anyone has any questions or if we're all good so far. The thumbs up if you're good. If you have a question, feel free to, thank you, feel free to unmute. So we're going to take it one step further, thank you. And that is going to be, and this is actually just my own version of this theta breath. It's going to take the tongue just a little further away from the teeth, and it's going to like almost be like a homeopathic version of the theta breath, meaning it's taking, if the theta breath was a 10, we're going to take that down to like a 2 or a 3. So it'll sound like this. It's no longer really a hiss. My tongue has moved from the front a little bit further back and my tongue has kind of spread out. So it's not vocal cords, it's just a sort of aspiration. And we'll do that for like another minute. And letting us come back together after that. So we're going to take this one layer deeper. And actually, this is inspired by, I've been listening to these podcasts by a friend of mine who has a podcast on meditation called Deconstructing Yourself. And I'm actually going through and editing some of, they're written out now, and I'm just editing to make sure the words match. And the person that I've been listening to is Daniel Ingram, who's one of my favorite weird mutant meditator people, who's also a medical doctor. But he's talking about doing kasana practice with fire. And that is where you take the idea of the fire. You see a fire and a flame, and then you close your eyes and then you imagine the fire and the flame. And since we're very good at doing that visually, my thought is to do that with the sound of these sounds. So it's like you're taking your focus and awareness into the space of the sound that we're making. And I feel like we're not trying to lock out the imagination in this. We're just allowing it to land within the space of the sounds that we're making. So you can bring your awareness, your sensation into that sound and let it, I want to say, dance in whatever airy breath way it dances. And it might have different sort of senses of participation on an interoception level on your inner body, how your body is feeling and sensing that. So we're going to go one layer deeper. So we're going to take that breath that was with the tongue sort of further back, and we're going to take it, it's called Luna breath. And it's almost like you're in outer space, this breath. It's another Emily Conrad breath, continuum practice breath. Some people call it Luna, some people call it lunar. And it's like, if you've done ujjayi breathing, you're kind of contracting in back here a little bit. It's like you take that and you distill that down to almost nothing. So you're only going to hear the sort of space sound inside your head. And what we're going to do is bring our attention into that sense of space sound. So this could be very internal, the space coming into yourself. And in a way, what they say sometimes with Luna breath is it kind of creates, it cuts off the stuff around you. Like I heard a story that they had been doing a bunch of Luna breath and then they went to a restaurant and they never got waited on or really seen because they all were so distant from reality. So that's just my funny story about it. But we're going to just play with that for like one more minute. If that doesn't make any sense, like, ooh, what is that Luna breath? It's really hard to teach without being in the same room where you could hear the almost nothing sound. But imagine an almost nothing space sound. Let go of any kind of idea of doing it right or wrong, because it doesn't matter. Whatever your sensation is, whatever you're focusing on, that's exactly right for you this moment. You're doing it right. And if you feel like it's too elusive, just go back to the idea with a theta with less tongue. So coming back, yes, Dawn.
What was the second one? Because the first one was theta, the tongue behind the teeth.
Yeah, the second one doesn't have a name. I just made it up, like a distilled theta. So like and that's what we're going to do. We're just going to take that back a little further. So it's coming into yourself. But don't worry about like being able to name or title or truly understand. It's really just about sensing and feeling. Whatever you're sensing or feeling, whatever your relationship of creating this moment is. So it's one of those create discover moments where you're creating and discovering the same thing at the same time. And it doesn't have to be the same as what I'm creating and discovering. So last little section of this theta, and then we're going to get into bigger movement. So whatever the Luna breath means to you, couple breaths in there. And to me, it just sounds almost like outer space inside. And it's sort of happening back here and in my throat, but it's really minor. There's not a lot of tension. Okay, we're gonna not go there for too long because I want to get us moving. And that was like really just the starter set to come into ourselves so that now we can move a little bit more out of ourselves. But before we do go on, let me just ask, is anyone noticing anything? Oh, good. I'm glad you liked that, Virginia. Anyone have anything that they want to share? Like, oh, when we did this, I felt this. And when we did that, I felt that. Feel free to just open up for a second and share whatever you feel or notice.
I'm so grateful, Laura. In the last one, I could drop in to my heart a lot more, like I sensed my heartbeat. And I love that. It's something that happens when I'm submerged in water. And it's a place I really like to be in. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually had the exact same thing, like a couple breaths in, I started to really sense my heartbeat. Arriving in the body, subtle and immediate. Yeah, really fast way to get in. So a lot of meditation techniques can take a long time, but there's some things that if you're accustomed to feeling in your body, you can go there really fast sometimes. So did you want to say something, Michael? You popped up as a picture.
I love the idea of making a sound that is only audible inside. I've been thinking a lot about sort of audio space, hearing in space, and that's a really nice extra dimension to it. Thanks.
Cool. The hustle. Okay, don't share that hustle. Brain. What do they call it? Earworm. But now I hear it too. Thank you.
I wanted to say something. The second one took me right away to like a whale's like fluke. Is it the tail? And like it was so gill-like. It just kind of happened, you know, imaginally and immediately. It was really cool, like that. And then the water, I don't know, it widened it so much.
Yes.
In that area, and then the third one was in this area.
Yeah. I just want to respond to that with a couple things. So one thing that they say is that the theta breath, tends to really establish midline. And I feel like when you take the tongue back a little further, it gives you more horizontal space, right?
Yeah, I felt that.
Establishing midline would be, we're connecting with the vertical dimension, and then we've now added sort of horizontal plane, but maybe in a more three-dimensional way with that. And then when we go into that Luna breath, well, for me, it's just like this interior spaciousness, but it's not spaciousness that's expanding. It's somehow spaciousness that's coming in and unfolding upon itself, almost like the idea of a torus, a T-O-R-U-S, that shape, the big donut. And then one more thing to say about that, and that is that idea of sort of having gills. I get migraines, and sometimes when I do this sort of gill breathing, I feel like it helps release the migraine. So there's really something about that tension that I hold as a pattern that's in this area, occipital, neck, clavicles, up all this whole area, that when I can get that sense of that gill breathing kind of, it can help release that a lot. So just really cool, interesting stuff. Anyone else want to say anything before we move on? All right, so let's actually come to standing. And we're going to play with the 3 dimensions. And we're going to play with them a little differently. So if we were doing like a straightforward Laban class, then we might just learn the 3 dimensions and in the dimensional cross-up axis. But I think I want to play with them just with movement and invite you to, like, starting with the vertical, the up and down, but playing with both sides of your body, up and down. So you could be going in opposition, one side versus the other. So we have this right versus left pattern happening, which is a developmental pattern. And we could also be going with both arms. And we could be going with different body parts. It could just be shoulders up and down. It could be releve and plie. You can play with the up and down in any way that feels interesting to you. So Charlie, welcome. We just did a whole meditation. And now we're coming kind of into the vertical dimension, the up and downness. So finding up and down, maybe even with your eyes. Finding the ways that you can conceive of up and down in your body in different sort of body parts and different sort of modalities. I'm just going to move further away. Finding up and down. So it could be an upper versus lower pattern, which in Laban we would call that a homologous pattern, upper versus lower, or it could be one side versus the other pattern, which would be a homolateral pattern, one side versus the other in the vertical. So we're kind of in the vertical dimension, we just have that up and down. We have one dimension, it's vertical. We have 2 directions, up and down. And let's switch it from our vertical into our horizontal. So we're going to play with horizontal. We can go one side or the other, horizontal dimension. But I also want to play with crossing and opening. So you can cross, you can open. Both sides can go one way or the other. Your arms and legs, just playing with how you can go from side to side and trying to not put a whole bunch of, like, keep it as purely horizontal dimension, right side, left side, as possible without adding any forward, backward, or any up, down. I mean, with our bodies, because we are actually three-dimensional beings, there's going to be a little bit of that, but try to take it out and play really with crossing and opening, feeling as wide and as big as you can get, and then narrowing it, and then getting wider in your narrowness. So feeling those possibilities in the horizontal dimension, our side side. You can add some breath. You can do your own little horizontal dance. Body parts, you could do just the eyes. It makes me feel like Mick Jagger in the front at the beginning of that video where he's popping his head all around, looking around. So feeling however you are finding the interest to go from side to side. And so with our side to side pattern, we just have a side to side pattern. There's no contralateral movement. There's no upper versus lower. It is just homolateral. We can't do anything. Actually, here we are crossing our body. So in some ways, honestly, that does become a contralateral pattern because we're crossing. But mostly it's side side. And now let's shift it to the forward backward. And I want to invite us in our forward backward, especially for those of you who are unafraid of seeing other people, to play with the room, to play with the other people. Like let this moment be a hello in your forward and backwardness, seeing what other people are doing, responding to each other. In this world, in this sort of two-dimensional Zoom space, there have got to be ways that we can find each other that are fun. And feel what it feels like, even to feel the pull forward, the pull back. Feeling the counter tension of one direction. Oh, thank you, Paula. Thank you. Feeling the counter tension of movement forward and backward in the sagittal. Sagittal like Sagittarius. So think forward, backward, dimension, sagittal. Straightforward, there's a spot right in front of you and the spot right behind you. And those are the points. You could try it with your foot. Right in front, right in back. Or your head, forward, backward. Like just different body parts. So in terms of Laban, when we're talking about space, if we're talking about sagittal, then we're going to use the headlights, the hip bones, as a sort of metric for where we are. Metric isn't the right word, but what is it? They are giving us the place. So if I turn my body here, that's my sagittal. So while I'm here, I want to keep both headlights facing front. So if I reach to the back and then I turn, I'm actually reaching to my side. So I want to have that twist in my body when I'm reaching to the back that keeps my hip bones facing front. And this is going to change the way, it's going to give you a little more fascial movement. So your fascia is getting that twisting movement as opposed to just kind of the square body that stays the same as I move. Getting some mobility between upper versus lower, not between upper versus lower, contralateral movement in your body. Yes, all right. So those are our three basic dimensions, up, down, side, side, backward, forward. Let's throw it into the actual scale. So the Laban scale. So I'm gonna start, this is actually my left side, but to you, I think it looks like my right. So I'm gonna start with that. And I'm gonna do the vertical dimension. So I go place high and place low. And then I'm gonna go across, horizontal, side across, and side open. My other side is working as a counter tension. Then I'm gonna go backwards, sagittal, and forwards. So that's the whole scale. It goes vertical, up, place high, place low, side across, side open, dominant hand, backwards, and forwards. One more time, vertical dimension, up and down, horizontal dimension, side across, side open, sagittal dimension, backwards, and forwards. And now we're gonna switch to the other side. So same thing, vertical, place high, place low, vertical dimension, up, down, side across, side open, backwards, and forwards, sagittal dimension, So these dimensions have one dimension, dimension vertical, with two directions. The directions are up, down. The directions are side, side. The directions in the sagittal are backward and forward. One more time with this other side. Reaching high and low, vertical, side across, side open, horizontal, backwards, and forwards, sagittal. And let's just come in together. Oops. I found a little ant running around on my floor. I don't know how they get in here. Like, there's not like a ton of them. It's just every once in a while, one little ant pops up. Okay, so if we were to take that, and this is the question, some of you already know the answer. So if you know the answer, don't answer the question, right? If you're guessing, then answer the question. These are our platonic solids. Dodecahedron, actually, let's do it from the beginning. Here's the tetrahedron, four-sided, right? Cube, eight-sided, six-sided, sorry. I know my platonic solids. And the octahedron, the eight-sided. That one there, I'll put it right in the middle of my forehead and you can see it. So there's our octahedron. There's the 12-sided dodecahedron. And the last one, 20-sided icosahedron. So this one has 20 sides, but it has 12 points around it. The octahedron has 6 points. The cube has 8 points. Tetrahedron has 4 points. And the dodecahedron, we don't use at all. So let's take that one out in terms of Laban stuff. So in that scale of movement, up, down, cross, open, backwards, forwards, if we were to place it inside, going from one point to another, one of these platonic solids, which one do you think it would be in? The octahedron, the cube, the tetrahedron, or the icosahedron? I feel like Vanna White, modeling these beautiful dice. Yeah, that's a really bad TV reference for American television that I hope nobody ever had to watch. Anyway, anyone want to guess at that? Octahedron. Yes, Virginia, winner. Yeah, here's our octahedron. So I have another one that's white that might be easier to see. So we have our up, down, that's the vertical. We have our side, side, that's the horizontal. And then right here, sagittal, forward, backward. So when we're moving in these shapes, we're moving inside from the points to the points. Like we're not creating an octahedron, but we're moving inside the inner scaffolding of that shape. There are scales in the—
Will you say that again? Because that's what I went with, but I'm still confused about it. Like, okay. I get it and I don't get it at the same time.
So here's our octahedron, right? My fingers right now are on the, if we expanded this bigger, I would be place high and place low, right? And I'm inside the middle of it. Now I'm gonna put my fingers on the sides. So that's the horizontal. Now I'm gonna put my fingers on the sagittal. So to me, front, back. And that's inside of the octahedron. I also have papers. I could show you this, but I don't want to spend that much time with that. What I actually want to spend a little bit more time with is your response. Like, what did you notice when you were doing these different versions of moving through the vertical? We did it with both the body just playing in the vertical, the eyes, the different things, and then the horizontal playing in different ways in the horizontal, and then the sagittal playing different ways. And then we threw together the whole thing and we did the scale, 12 points. 12 points is the icosahedron. So we only did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We only did 6 points. 3 dimensions, 6 points. And this is theory. It doesn't necessarily matter if you learn the theory. It's more that you have the conceptual idea of it in your body so that you can, oh, am I balanced? Have I done some front back stuff? Have I done some side stuff? Side side, have I done some upper lower? Like if you know that framework, all of your workouts, your dancing can take on a different wholeness pattern. Your wholeness pattern becomes more conceptualized. Yeah. So Yes, Dawn.
I was noticing that I really loved the sagittal plane, and I loved how my torso was kind of convexing and concaving. And then I was noticing what my torso was doing in the vertical and horizontal, and they both felt similar in terms of my torso. And I was curious about ways that I might feel different between horizontal and vertical in my torso. That was an interesting thing to play around with.
Yeah, and what we can say is if we look at our torso, so this gets us into the planes in a weird way. If we look at my torso, what is, as I fall over, I've got like all these accoutrements, it's an ottoman. What is the shape of my torso basically? If we look at this, what is the basic shape of that?
Like a rectangle.
It's a rectangle. My torso is basically shaped like the vertical plane. So
Right.
Here's my vertical, the dominant. Here's my horizontal, the secondary in the vertical plane, right? So of course, this, our bodies were made, if we're not moving forward or backward, we're in the vertical plane. And the vertical plane is very much the hello, me, the vertical dimension, the vertical plane. Whereas if I'm in the horizontal dimension or the horizontal plane, you can feel the inclusiveness of the horizontal plane, right? It's my big table. You're all welcome to come eat at my big table. Whereas the vertical plane is my door, right? Not that it actually, the analogy doesn't match that well between like what the door is, but we've moved out of single dimensions into planes, just in case you were unsure of that. But Dawn is you keep moving us there because you talked about the icosahedron too, the 12 points. So that's the natural direction. We will go there. So let's move again. So we're going to find our 4 points of each of these planes. And as we've looked at my body and gone, oh, vertical plane, we can see that in the vertical plane, the primary dimension is up, down, vertical. The secondary dimension is side, side. And we have our door plane. And the 4 points, high right, high left, low right, low left. High right, high left, low right, low left. One more time, high right, high left, low right, low left. So the way that we've been splitting them up, that I'm doing them using both sides of my body, is very much a homolateral split. High right, high left, low right, low left. If we want to change the way we're doing it, we can stick with one hand and go high right to low left. Now we're working across the body, high right to low left. High right, this and is just a counterbalance. So high right, low left. We're talking about the space that this hand is moving in, high right to low left. Let's do the other side. High left to low right. High left, I'm crossing on top, arm and leg, open on the bottom. Crossing on top, open on the bottom. And if you really want to be exciting about this, when you cross on top, you can curve and releve. So you can go up high, get the C curve in your body, and suddenly it's like, oh, it's much more dancey. And then let's just go cross high here, come in, change the other body, cross high there, and come in. Cross high to center, cross high to center. Just to feel like, what does that feel like, that narrowing, right? Speaking of yoga, that's like, you know, coming into these balances where we're crossing the body. And when we cross the body, something different is happening in our brain, because in movement, one side of my brain is controlling the other side of my body. This side of my brain controlling. So when they cross over, still it's the other side controlling it, but now it's on a different side. So what happens when that is, there's more information going through your corpus callosum, which is the superhighway of your brain. The more different connections we have moving through the corpus callosum, the healthier our brain, the more plasticity, the more capacity, which is one reason why I'm teaching these classes on a donation-only base. They're free. You can come and take class, because I feel like when people start to open up their bodies, they can open up their minds, right? And God knows, by looking at our country, this country, people need to open their minds a little bit, so we're not in contraction all the time. So let's just shake that idea out. A little shake, shake, shake. Relax your tongue. And let's go into the horizontal plane. So our primary spatial pull in the horizontal plane, the main one is horizontal. The secondary one, we're adding front back, is sagittal. So we're gonna hit the points using both halves of our body. And I'm just gonna turn around for the first version of doing this. Not only your country, I know, a lot of countries, right? Lots of contraction happening. All right, so we're gonna go with the right hand, right forward middle, left forward middle, right back middle, left back middle, right forward middle, left forward middle, right back middle, left back middle. And I'm just gonna turn around so I'm facing you, right forward middle, left forward middle, right back middle, left back middle, right forward middle, left forward middle, right back middle, left back middle. And it kind of feels like you're skating through the space. So now let's try that the same way we did before, where we did some crossing and opening. Let's go to right forward middle with the other side of your body to left back middle. And if you feel like getting dancey and exciting, you could like really lay that out or kick that other leg. Right forward middle to left back middle. And one thing that you'll notice is that part of our balance in these positions is really coming from the sense of counter tension. So as I'm going to right forward middle with my arm, if I stick my leg out there, it's very easy to balance this. I have these two opposing forces. It's not kind of just anywhere where it's harder to balance. There's a specificity. Ooh, I'm spiraling. Let's try it with the other side. Left forward middle, crossing to right back middle, open. Left forward middle to right back middle. Left forward middle to right back middle. Left forward middle to right back middle. And so I'm getting a little more dancey by adding my head, right? We have a natural writing response. It's one of our, it's a response that babies have, like keep your head up, right? That's sort of how we develop the strength of our spine. So, and you'll see this sometimes in dancers who aren't that advanced, that they do all their moves, but their head is trying to stay vertical. So on this, we're gonna let the head go, right? And I've actually changed the whole twist of my body, but if I take my head into the directions, it changes the whole relationship of my spine. So even if I do the vertical plane and go vertical plane, high left, high right, low left, low right, high left, high right, low left. Suddenly there's fluidity in the spine. High left, high right, low left, low right, right? And with that fluidity, we are going to be filtering our cerebral spinal fluid in a much more energetic way, which also means we are going to be working our lymphatic system, because deep diaphragmatic breathing and movement stimulate lymph. And lymph is a detoxifier of the body. It's one of the healing fluids. So when we move, and particularly when we move in these really balanced three-dimensional ways, we're allowing our body this chance to filter some of the stuff that's inside. So we're clearing away our gunk in one way of looking at it, or the way that I like to look at it. And also why it's so important for our fascia to balance that stuff is that then we can still do it. Like, wait, woo, I can take it back there. I can go to my places and I'm not like, oh, wasn't ready for that, right? I have a facility in the space, which is healthy for fascia. It's healthy for lymph. It's healthy for bone, muscle, all that stuff. Like we are now creating this, well, we call it a system like a biotensegrity. So as things are moving, this is what's happening inside. Okay, so we've done the vertical plane. We've done the horizontal plane. Now we'll go to the sagittal plane. So sagittal, our primary direction is forward, backward. Our secondary dimension is up, down. So if this is my sagittal, forward, backward, I have my forward and backward. I have a little bit of up, down. That makes this the wheel plane. So it's like rolling a somersault. Somersault would be in the wheel plane. So we have forward low. I'm just gonna do it with one side of my body. This is actually my right, but it might look like my left to you. So feel free to do whichever one feels good. We'll do them both. Taking it from forward low to forward high to backward low. So I'm just going with one side, forward low, forward high, backward low. And this way of doing it, forward low to forward high, is kind of like backward high. This part right now is like bowling. Bowling, that's our bowling moment. If we were to do it the other way, it would be like throwing. But let's just go to the other side and bowl. So we're going to the other side of our body, forward low, forward high, backward low, forward low, forward high, backward low. And then just let me show you this, how I'm doing this sideways so that you can see what I'm doing in my body. So I'm here in my forward low, I'm bending and reaching. So it's not so much here, it's more here. So I'm getting a nice balance through all my joints. Forward high, my backward high, I'm trying to really reach into that backward high, and then backward low, I'm kind of in a tilt. Forward low, forward high, backward low. Just to give you another idea of what that is. So if we were, I'm coming in, and we're gonna go just a little further with that in a minute. So if we were to talk about each of these planes, the best way to conceive of them is, yeah, and feel free to ask questions. So Virginia just said, thanks for showing, that was helpful. Feel free to like go, wait a minute, unmute, pause if you need to figure something out. And it's a lot of information, right? But it's really information that on some level, you know. It's not stuff that's completely foreign. You've been living in a body since you were born. So a lot of you knows this, you just might not have language for it. So when you start to create different conceptualized versions of the space around you, it can really change your relationship to the world. Like, right, as soon as you start to change anything, especially a big concept, you change. Okay, so the best way to think about these planes is as a piece of paper. I've got a really curly piece of paper, but if we think of them as a piece, like a plane, being like a piece of paper, it's longer, yeah, than it is wide. So this would be my vertical plane. Vertical is longer, a little bit of width. This is the way that that plane would fit together with my horizontal plane here. Longer or wider than, so that's the dominant plane is the horizontal, a little bit of forward, backward, sagittal. My sagittal, I'm here, mostly sagittal with a little bit of up and down. Now, I'm gonna fold this in to a smaller plane and I'm gonna see if this works to show you instead of just using my hands. All right, Paula, nice to see you. So here's the icosahedron. This has 20 faces and 12 points. So if we put our three planes together, each corner of the plane is one of those points. So I'm gonna take this. Oh, is it gonna fit? It's gonna be a little bit too big, but I'm gonna jam it in there anyway, just to give you the idea. And I'm gonna smash it in to, oh no, it fits almost perfectly. The vertical plane, right? Boom, vertical plane, my vertical plane. Now I'm just gonna leave it where it is and move the icosahedron to show you the horizontal plane. Now it's here, those other 4 points, and I'm gonna move it again to show you the sagittal plane. And by that, I've created this whole inner scaffolding. So here's my sagittal, my horizontal, and my vertical. Does that help make some sense of the interior of this? So there's a scale of movement that happens in the icosahedron, and it's sort of the most advanced scale. If you were to study Laban movement analysis, you would spend a year working on this scale. But I actually have taught it to people in 2 hours. And there are ways, like, depending on how spatial you are, and it's not something like, oh, I'm spatial or I'm not spatial. It's like you can develop this skill. If you tend to be a very visual speed demon like me, there's a pretty good chance that conceptualizing space is very easy for you. If you're more of a auditory, so not quite a speed demon as a verbal visual person, if you're more of a listener, then you need to think about high right. You need the names of the spaces to get there, right? And if you're more of a kinesthetic person, like feeling what the feeling is in your body and moving, then you need to move it. You need to feel, oh, I'm up here and there's 2 spatial pulls. I'm going up and I'm going to the side, right? Or I'm going straight forward. There's just one spatial pull. It's vertical, right? So, and this can be an interesting thing about like why you might meet like Daniel Ingram, this meditation guy who's also a medical emergency room doctor, and he speaks faster than me. And so like when I hear, I'm like, I'm on fire. It's like, oh, I recognize that type of energy and it just works for me. But for somebody else who's on a much slower, more kinesthetic, it might be like, it's total overwhelm, right? So you can look at even why a type of person could attract you. And it could be because you don't have that, or it could be that you do have that, right? Or it could be that like, but all of these things, whatever we are, we can change. I don't want to say change. We can grow other sections of ourselves. And the more we work to sort of balance that out, the more we're working to grow our brain in a way, to grow our sense of being in the world. And while we grow our brain and our sense of being in the world, we create more possibility. Like, oh, there's a person like that. Now I'm reacting. Oh, it's a person like that. So I'm reacting. Oh, I can kind of let go of that because that's why I'm reacting. Now there's a story around it and I can let go of something. If you're that kind of person. Or you can just go, oh, I'm noticing the tension, or I'm reaching towards something, I'm trying for something. And knowing what your body's doing on that internal level of like grasping for something, or oh, I can relax into this and I can just come into the field of what's going on in an easy way, which that for me is the reason that I'm in these classes and doing this with you, is because when I'm working with other people with this material, it's alive. If I'm working by myself, it can be cool, but it's not nearly as exciting and doesn't create this field of energetic possibility until I add other people. So I'm just going to show you a couple of paintings. So I'm also like super into painting this idea of space. So, and we can see how they nestle into each other. So here in the center is a tetrahedron, right? Tetrahedron, boom, right there in the center of this bigger icosahedron. Icosahedron. And then on this side, we have kind of a flatter, more two-dimensional one. And on this side, one that's kind of just taking off. So this is the idea of how this space all nestles into the next layer of space. And here's one more painting of a cube. So you see this cube, but all of the elements of making this stuff, it's all the same elements, right? It's like a bunch of circles and then some lines, and then I draw some more lines, and then I suddenly have these shapes taking place. And because I'm such a, like, I didn't start painting the space until 2016, but when I did, it really changed something. A, because I could play with color, which is my other favorite thing, and spend this time like just lost in this realm of making something and really letting it arise as was interesting to me. And then conceptualizing space in yet another layer, which gives like, oh, this suddenly it's not just art, it's not just movement or language or conception, it's also like art and color and creativity. So just, which all of these things to me are like the ambrosia, the deliciousness, the things I want to eat more and more of. Okay, so let's play with the idea of the icosahedron. And so what we'll do is move some of it. So coming up, or if you're kind of like maxed out, just watch. It's always possible to not have to do everything, right? If you feel like, oh my God, my mind is blown, or this is so boring, what the hell? Whatever you're feeling, it's all allowed. So I'm actually going to turn around, I think, to do this because it will be a lot easier for me to cue if I'm actually cueing the part of my body that is going there. So in this scale, it's always going to go vertical to sagittal to horizontal. And I'm going to do the whole scale with you. So I'm going to start in my high right position of the vertical plane. So I'm going to go high right, and I'm going to do the whole thing with my right hand. So I'm going high right, vertical, this is my vertical plane, into back low, sagittal plane, and then I'm going to come around to my horizontal, crossing my body to left, forward, middle. So that's the first 3 points. Second 3 points. Low right, down here, to, that's my vertical plane, to back high, that's my sagittal plane, to the next horizontal point, to right, forward, middle. So that's my second set of 3. Third set of 3, I'm down here in my low left vertical plane. I'm going to take it to forward high sagittal plane into right back middle. horizontal plane, last 3 points. Vertical plane, high left, sagittal plane, forward low, horizontal plane, left back middle, and I come right back to my starting point. So I'm gonna go through this. Let's just do it a couple times more on the right, a little bit. Yeah, go ahead, Virginia.
I'm completely confused with the sagittal, and I'm like, but that's not the sagittal. Is like,
Okay, so sagittal is like this. If this is my body, there's my forward high, there's my forward low, there's my back high, and my back low. Here's the icosahedron. There's the sagittal plane inside of it. So think of it like Sagittarius. So there's no side. Take out the right and left. So when we, so there's no side. It's just like a wheel that you're rolling in. Does that help?
Not really, but I think it will take me 3 or 4 meetings
I know.
to get it.
And you're also that kinesthetic person, so this is going to be more challenging. Go ahead, Elena.
I just want to say thank you. That was wonderful. I got to go now to another appointment, but have a great day, everyone.
You too. Thanks for coming. All right. So we're running out of time and I don't want to go over. So let's do it. I'm just going to repeat it. And think of it this way, Virginia, that you don't need to remember any of the concepts. Let your body take it in and don't stress out at all about knowing the words or what I'm saying. Go to it from the body level, right? So that's the thing. We can always go, or the listening level for anyone that's easier. And then the eyeballs level for the visual people. So let's try it one more time on that side. We're going to have high right, back low, left forward middle, low right, back high, right forward middle, low left, forward high, right back middle, high left, forward low, left back middle, high right. How is it to see it and do it? And also, I don't have my thing, but let's do the other side just to even out before we finish. So let's do the left side twice through. I'm not gonna stop, I'm just gonna do it. Bang, bang, and then we'll come back together. So left side, we're going high left, back low, right forward middle, low left, back high, left forward middle, low right, forward high, left back middle, high right, forward low, right back middle, continuing on to repeat. High left, back low, right forward middle, low left, back high, left forward middle, low right, forward high, left back middle, high right, forward low, right back middle, into high left. So coming back together, if that fried your brains, then just let that go, breathe out the steam, come back to the Luna breath. Yeah, and know that this is really advanced stuff. And depending on how you conceptualize, and also it's a lot easier to learn it in the same room as another person. Like learning in a box on Zoom is totally challenging. So yeah.
I've been doing this scale for a really long time and I'm still struggling to learn it. It's really, I really love it and it's really challenging.
It is, it's hard. But at the same time, I would like to have a day where I just do icosahedron stuff, but I need like to work with, but you have to have an understanding of the other layers before you can go to the icosahedron,
Yeah,
right?
I'd be happy to do that anytime if you want to do a group like that.
Well, I can do it with, yeah, we can do like the advanced group version.
And can I make another comment?
Yeah.
I find the last movement hard for some reason to go.
Well, because you're going behind you, you're
Yeah.
crossing, you're reaching into the back space. How often do you ever go there?
Yes,
How
that-
often does this ever happen in your body?
It also feels like going from forward low to back over there. That transition feels different than the others or something. I don't know.
I mean, and that's why it's interesting, because these are just not movements that we're typically doing, right? And so if we were to talk about like using the Bartenia fundamentals to really underlie that, we'd be really working with like this body level of shaping and rotation and spiraling and like head tail, like all these different things that are connecting into that to really juice it up.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns?
I have a question. I feel so for me, it's not that easy to move backwards
Yes.
and the other direction. And my question is that is there any semantic or cognitive explanation for this, or is it related to vision or gravity, or it's just our flexibility and joints and so on?
Well, I think that it is that we are facing front, right? So this is not an easy place. So, and we don't use it, right? Like unless you're dancing or doing yoga or doing something that puts you, or martial arts, but martial arts, not so much. That's going to be more forward stuff, right? Yeah. There may be some reaches, but mostly it's going to be the energy moving that way. So if we don't use things, we don't really access them. But there's a lot of somatic sort of, I don't want to, it's not somatic experiencing, but somatic experiences that you can have to take it into the back space. And I do want to just mention that that idea of the sagittal, the forward backward, is really about taking action and backing up and backing away. And as a culture, we very rarely back up. And I mean, generally humans, like that, what is the desired thing? Go forward, keep doing your stuff. Like, and if you're backing up and backing off, that is a sign of weakness. Nobody likes that, right? But in our culture and right now, especially what we need to do is learn to take it back, right? Learn to back away. Maybe not to immediately engage in things. So I think that knowing that piece that you now have about that space, it's really up to you to start to understand, what is my relationship? What's back there? And what ways, like just laying on the floor on your back and sinking into it, you can have more access, right, to that back space and to the sensation of what's come before us. We're also not a very historical thinking, right? Like, go ahead, Virginia.
You said about the martial arts, there's actually exercises where you're supposed to close your eyes and feel how many people are behind you as a martial artist. And,
yeah.
And you only pass the level when you know what's going on behind you, which I was mesmerized by.
That's a great example of that awareness and that space. Louisa Clark, you asked a question about books. Thanks for the paintings. Running books on Laban theory. You know, there are a lot of people that write about it, and I feel like there's sort of difficulty in a lot of them. There's Irmgard Bartenieff has a book called Coping with the Environment. Irmgard Bartenieff, Coping with the Environment. Not sure how easy it is to get that book, but it's got a lot of interesting stuff in it. Yeah.
I think it's still published. I think it's still published.
I just think it might be really expensive. I feel like I bought it for $50 when I got it.
It's a great book. I think it's a great book.
Yeah. 120 pounds. Yeah, it's expensive. I think I spent like $50 on it when I got it like 20 something years ago. I think that there is like, I do want to say, like, I have on my YouTube channel, which is Laura Victoria Ward, I've been doing a ton of these inner outer spaces, and you can go back and look at them, and each of them tends to be slightly different than the other ones. So there's different emphasis on them. And Lisa, if you want to, Louisa, if you want to reach out to me, I'll just put I'm going to put my email in there for all of you if you want to. Oh, Kindle, $40. Yeah, but I don't know. Well, Kindle's okay. I think you don't need to necessarily own it. I'm just going to put my email in here. And if you have questions, you can reach out to me. And if you want, like, I can send you my link and all that kind of stuff. Laban for all. Yeah, I think that a lot of the Laban books, like, you really have to be working with a person to sort of get what they're talking about. And Laban has a lot of books that he's written himself. And they are, if you're in the work, you can get it. But if you're out of it, you're like, it's good to have the real participatory stuff with this. All right, any other questions or comments or concerns before we close it out?
It was great.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and I'm doing this class every Thursday. So, and you can just come on. It's the same link all the time. Feel free. There's somebody who's teaching in Scotland. I know that there's a couple Laban programs that go on up there, but I also want to say that like there's a real variety in the teaching of the Laban work, and the UK Laban work is very different than the American Laban work. I think the American tends to have more, well, the Bartenieff stuff was over here. So there's a different somatic lean to it. But it's the most interesting stuff of any of the, because it's applicable to everything. Like you can look at the way you do any movement and look at it through Laban lens. So I feel like it's really helpful in that sense. All right. Bye, Dawn.
Bye, everyone.
Nice to see you. Anyone else before we close it out?
Just thanks a lot. This was great.
Thank you, Michael. Nice to see you. Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. I'm going to close. Anybody who made it through the video, you win the prize. You did it. Yay. And lovely to see you all and meet new people.
Quick question. So do you share these videos? You do share these videos, the recordings after?
Yeah.
Just on your,
I share it on my YouTube. And then I sometimes manage to also post that on Facebook. Sometimes I forget, sometimes I post it in things, but I feel like there are a few people that follow it, but like there's, it's small viewership because it's weird, specific stuff.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. And nice to see you all.